The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most critical energy choke points in the world, and any disruption here can send shockwaves through the global economy. My colleague Shreya Upadhyay has more details.
First, let's talk about the Strait of Hormuz. Remember, it lies between Iran on one side and Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Oman on the other. So it's the only sea passage that is connecting the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. And through this single maritime corridor, remember, passes a massive share of the world's energy supply. Around 20% of the world's total oil supply moves through this very strait, and about 25% of the global seaborne oil trade is dependent on it. In fact, nearly 20 million barrels of oil passes through this very Strait of Hormuz every single day. So who depends the most on this critical oil route? Asia is the biggest consumer of this oil moving through the Strait of Hormuz. But within Asia, which is the largest importer, it is China. It stands at 37.7%, which is the largest importer. And then comes India, which is at about 14.7%, close to 15%, followed by South Korea at 12%, then Japan at 10.9%. Remember, two major industrial economies that rely heavily on energy imports, China and India, as well as, of course, South Korea and Japan. The US and Europe at 2.5% and 4% take a much smaller share. In fact, nearly 89% of the crude oil moving through Hormuz goes to Asia. Only about 11% goes to the rest of the world, which makes Asia, and especially China and India, highly vulnerable to any disruption in this strait. And that is why the kind of concerns that we are seeing here in India. But it's not just the oil tankers of different countries that are at risk. The wider conflict in West Asia is also threatening some of the region's most critical energy facilities. Let's begin with Qatar. The Ras Laffan LNG terminal has been shut down after a drone strike here in Qatar in this very facility. This is, remember, the world's largest LNG export hub, and Qatar accounts for roughly 20% of the global LNG supply. Shifting our focus to Saudi Arabia, where the Ras Tanura port, this very refinery, has been impacted. It is one of the kingdom's key oil export hubs. It was temporarily shut following a drone impact and a fire. Oil infrastructure in the UAE has been affected as well at the Fujairah oil terminal in the country, with disruptions reported at this very terminal. Remember, this is a key route that is used to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, Israel has shut down production at the Leviathan gas field as well due to security risks. But Bahrain, remember, in Bahrain, the Bapco refinery has been affected. It has halted operations after a missile strike disrupted fuel supplies. Now remember, if shipping through the Strait of Hormuz is disrupted, the consequences will go far beyond just oil, because it serves as a vital route for global trade as well. It is a major corridor for global LNG supplies as well, with roughly 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas trade passing through this very strait. At the same time, the Gulf region exports massive volumes of petrochemicals, plastic feedstocks, fertilizers, refined fuels, as well as industrial chemicals. They're all of them relying on this very shipping route. Now, with vessels avoiding the region and freight risks rising, shipments of jet fuel, diesel, naphtha and chemical cargoes are facing delays. Remember, every dry bulk commodities, including coal and steel, are seeing disruption as the shipping companies steer clear of this entire conflict zone. The result is a widening supply shock that is ripping through multiple industries. And that is exactly why governments and markets around the world are watching this region very, very closely. The global economy is highly dependent on energy flows from the Gulf. India, remember, imports about 50% of crude via the Strait of Hormuz, as you can see. This is why India is very concerned. Next up is Japan. It imports 75% of the oil from the Gulf. It is dependent on the Gulf region for 75% of its oil imports. South Korea, 60% of its crude is dependent on this region for its crude supply. So if shipping through the Hormuz is disrupted, the risks are significant. And the energy import bills could rise sharply as well. There are concerns around the world on that. Global inflation pressures could increase. Supply chains in manufacturing industries could face serious disruptions as well. And there could be major pressure on fertilizer and chemical supplies as well. And here in India, also there are concerns about it. These are essential for the agriculture industry as well. Unless maritime security improves quickly, the economic costs of this conflict could continue to spread far beyond the oil market. And that is why the entire world is concerned about it.